I had a loving mother and a loving father. I came from there was just a couple of us in the family, but it was a well-knit family, and it was a good family. I was never hungry. I was never neglected, except, well, sometimes I was neglected. My father, I remember my first job, and I was very fortunate to have a job. I was working 6 days a week delivering furniture.
How old were you?
I was 15.
15.
And I was making $10 a week, which sounds ridiculous. But the shipping clerk at this furniture store, he was the owner's brother-in-law. They had 29 trucks, and the other guys were making like $11 or maybe $12, and the shipping clerk was only making $17, and he was the owner's brother-in-law. So I would consider myself pretty lucky. But I remember we were downtown one Christmas Eve, and I asked my father to loan me $5 because I wanted to get my mother a gift. And he started giving me a lecture that I've known Christmas was coming for a year. You know?
Yes.
Why didn't I save up for this, you know? Well, when I went to work for $10, my father told me I had to give my mother $3 a week. And I asked him, what was that for? He said, well, that would teach me responsibility, which was another lesson I didn't want to hear. Well, that left me $7, and I'm supposed to save for a Christmas gift. But I showed him, I got out of the car. I got out of the car and just said, forget it. And that was at 9th and Broadway. We lived at 92nd and Bandera. So I got out at 9th and Broadway, and I stood there waiting for him to come back. And I waited. I waited. I waited. And I said, I know he didn't get lost. He works right across the street. So it dawned on me that maybe he wasn't coming back. So I didn't have a nickel in my pocket. Streetcar fare was 7 cents. I didn't have 7 cents. So I started walking home. And I got home late that night. And everybody was reading the paper and listening to the radio. Nobody seemed to have been worried. And I said, do you know you left me? He said he was very aware of the fact that he had left me. And I said, well, how did you think I was going to get home? He said, just like you got home on your big feet. And he said, now that was 2 lessons you should have learned. I said, what is that? He said, I've always told you to anticipate things. So you should have anticipated Christmas and getting a gift for your mother. And I've always told you never to leave home without money in your pocket to get back.
Good for your father.
And I have never left home since then. If I leave and go to Europe, I may not have plane fare, I may not have boat fare, but I'll bet you I've got bus fares. I'll catch a bus to drive across the Atlantic to get here, you know. No.
Oh, your father was a disciplinarian, but he was very wise. Good lessons for the future.
Very, very good. I borrowed money from him once. Not intentionally. He and my mother, after he retired, they were doing some traveling, and I was the brother that always had the responsibility. My older brother, he was in real estate, but oh no, he's flighty. You take care of the properties while we're gone. I'm on radio all day, take care of the properties. People don't like to pay rent to begin with. And I have to come by at 10 at night and 11 at night to get the rent. And I collected the rent, and I went in his rent and spent some money. My wife was with him. Now I've got to make up this rent. I lost, I think it was $800 I'd used, and I made it all up except $200. And when my father came back, he said, well, where's the other $200? I figured he's going to say, well, you did all of this, you know, and working and everything, forget it. He said, where's the other $200? I said, I don't have it. He said, okay. So he sat down and wrote out a note. I owe Arthur Adams Sr. $200. And he said, I'm going to give you a good rate, 2.5%.
Your father was a serious businessman.
And made me sign it. And when my father passed, I found that note on the top of all of his papers in the safe deposit box. So I didn't pay interest on it, though. I went to my brother and I said, here's your half, here's $100, because he did it that way. Those were things that seemed severe at the time, but now I appreciate them.
Good lessons for your future.
I really do.
Absolutely.
I really do. My father never once struck me. My mother wasn't quite so gentle. She was brutal. We'd do something downtown, I'd do something, and she'd say, you're going to get a whipping when you get home, when I was 5 or 6 years old. And nobody was more attentive than I was the rest of the day. And we would get home, and my mother had nerve. My mother would say to me, go out in the yard and get a switch.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to go and get a switch for me to get whipped with. So I would come in with a switch about 8 inches long, and she would look at me and say, you must think I'm crazy. And I wanted to say back to her, no, but you must think I'm crazy.
But you didn't.
No, I didn't.
Yes.
So I'd go out and she'd want me to bring a tree in.
Yes, of course.
And I would go out, and then she would do this routine of whipping me, and I'll show her I'm not going to cry.
Yes.
I'll get even with her. Oh, you're not going to cry? So then I'd cry, and then she'd tell me to shut up. The neighbors will think I'm killing you. So I never knew which way to go. But it was fun.
A very warm, supportive, loving family.
Yes,
that's what it sounds like.
Because that same mother, like, she'd ask me what I wanted for lunch in the summer when we were out for vacation, summer out of school. And I'd say, hey, Mom, let's have chicken. So she'd get one of the pullets, wring its neck, which I could never do.
Yes.
And put it in the hot water, pick the feathers off, split it in the back, fry it. Because my father always wanted a balanced meal. We didn't.
Yes.
We we ate alike. So I had that and home brew. You know what home brew is?
I think I do.
Well, home brew is homemade beer.
Yes.
Which was illegal at the time. And they made this beer, and 11 years old, I was drinking beer and butter and bread and the chicken. That was my lunch. Now, my father, couldn't tell him about that.
No.
But my mother was a mother. Like when I gave her the $3 that my father told me that I had to give her each week, I'd borrow back $5.
Yes.
But now she made me pay it back.
Yes, but she didn't tell your father.
No,
yes.
no, he never knew, I don't think. But she made sure I paid it back, because if I didn't pay it back, I couldn't borrow the next week, So
that was another lesson.
Mm-hmm. She did it.